The New York Islanders dropped their first two preseason games in disappointing fashion. We've got our key takeaways, and hey, it is preseason. Plus, the future of Richard Panik made a little bit clearer from an Islanders perspective. We've got that, plus an email question from you, all coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Gil Martin, so glad you could be with us and be part of the Locked On Islanders family. And thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. We have got a lot to discuss. It was so good to see the Islanders back on the ice the last couple of games, and yet boy, it sort of had some deja vu all over again feelings, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, if you've got something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question about something we discussed, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to talk about on the show, feel free to send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we are happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could also follow the show on Twitter, the Twitter address Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on Twitter at Ice Wars, NYRVSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings throughout training camp, the preseason, and regular season hockey just about 2 weeks away. So lots to look forward to here for Islander fans. Now, first of all, again, want to wish everyone who celebrated the holiday the last couple of days a happy and a healthy new year. Great to be back live with everybody and to do a live show. Let's talk a little bit about those first two preseason games. Sunday night against the Rangers. No, excuse me, Monday night against the Rangers, Tuesday night against the New Jersey Devils, both games ending in 4-1 defeats for the New York Islanders. And both games, had their disappointing aspects, and both games had things that we can sort of look forward to or anticipate. So again, it is preseason. You're not going to sit here and say, oh my, the sky is falling because the Islanders played shaky hockey in parts of two preseason games. You know what? Half the players in these games are not going to be on the Islanders once the season starts. These line combinations, very experimental at this point. And just overall, this is not what we're going to see once the regular season starts. That being said, there are some takeaways you have, both positive and negative. And, let's face it, this was a disappointing start when you lose both games by a score of 4-1. And let's get started with one thing, the goaltending in the game against the Rangers. So we'll start with that game. Semyon Varlamov kind of struggling this half a game that he played. And, what he basically said is, physically, I felt good, but at the same time, feeling a little rusty. First game, what could I say? I gave up 4 goals. I'm not very happy about it, of course. Some moments I can play better, but it is what it is. And realistically, I think, that's a fair assessment. And look, last year, Varley missed the preseason, missed most of training camp, didn't play until the season was, 6 games, I believe it was, in, and then he was the backup, and then he played, and then COVID hit the whole team. So Varley had a rough start to the season, started to play better in the second half once he got into the groove. Am I worried that a goalie doesn't look as sharp in his first preseason game when nobody has played in game conditions since mid-April? No. But I do want to see a better performance from Semyon Varlamov, obviously, before all is said and done. Let's talk a little bit about a positive. And definitely one of the positives is Robin Salo. He scored the only goal for the Islanders against the Rangers. And, Salo is battling for that sixth spot on the third pair, most likely playing opposite Scott Mayfield. And, the big advantage that you have for Salo is that he can give you probably a little bit more offensively than either Aho on the one hand, and then Dennis Cholowski, who is more of a defensive oriented guy than Salo or Aho. The goal, nice little shot from the point, kind of a little bit of a screen. Always good to see. But, overall, getting the only goal, definitely a positive. And, for the Islanders, I think overall, Salo probably had a good overall game, and that's encouraging. Alexander Romanov also making his debut, and, well, it was sort of a good news, bad news as far as I could see. He certainly showed he is ready, willing, and able to throw the body around. But at the same time, there were points where he missed when he tried to make a hit. One play by Keandre Miller, I think, comes to mind more than anything. Here's part of the bottom line. He was on ice for 3 of the 4 goals by the Rangers in that first game. And, Romanov and Dobson, they got to learn to play with each other and get their timing down. Romanov was on the ice for over 20 minutes. He was out there on the penalty kill. But again, he's got to get used to his teammates. He's got to be stronger out there, and he's got to get the job done a little bit more consistently from a defensive standpoint. One other thing that really was disappointing, though, special teams. And again, you go back and look at it. The Islanders give up a power play goal. They give up a shorthanded goal, and they don't score at all. Go 0 for 4 on the power play. So the power play is a -1 when you give up a shorty. The penalty kill gives up 1. You lose the game by 3 goals, 2 of them on special teams. That is not what you want to see. And yet again, the thing you sort of come back to after the game, Lane Lambert basically saying, we haven't practiced the power play yet through the first 4 or 5 days of training camp. Well, I'm not a professional hockey coach, but why not? Why wait until after the first 2 preseason games to be on the ice practicing your special teams? I want to see them do more of that. We know they finished strong on special teams, but we've got new assistant coaches running the power play and the penalty kill. We've got new personnel out there. I want to see a little bit more from the penalty kill and especially from the power play. We didn't get it in really either of these first 2 preseason games. We've got more observations on both the game against the Rangers and the game against the Devils. We'll have that, plus more on Richard Panik and one of your email questions. All that and more coming up on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for football betting info this season. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you could find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sports wagering information with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every every sport out there. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, golf, and now preseason hockey. You can head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. So, again, the game against the Devils last night, a 4-1 loss once again. And again, only one goal. This one, at least the Islanders scored first as opposed to last. And it was Nikita Soshnikov, one of the recent acquisitions, who got the goal. So I'll take that as something encouraging. William Dufour getting the only assist. And it's good to see Dufour out there doing his thing. Again, Islanders 0 for 5 on the power play. You can't have that. You're now 0 for 9 on your first power play in your first 2 games. That is just not going to get the job done. And, Ilya Sorokin giving up 3 goals out of the 4 for the Islanders. The last goal given up, of course, by Corey Schneider. But again, you're not looking at this so much as wins and losses as much as, how was the defense overall? Did they space well? Did they play the kind of game that you sort of would hope for them to play? I think, Atu Ratu was out there. He played almost 20 minutes in this game. You had a nice mix of experienced players and younger guys. You had Foshing and McLean and Dufour out there along with Ratu. And then you had more of the veterans. On defense, Chalowski, Helgelson, and Ledoux. So you had 3 inexperienced guys. Aho sort of in the middle, Pelech and Pulak out there as well. And again, overall, Schneider looking solid, giving up only 1 goal on 9 shots. Sorokin giving up 3 in 12 shots. Both of them playing roughly half the game. But look, the penalty kill was better, killed off all 3. But that power play really has to pick up. And the giveaways, Islanders, 6 giveaways they were credited with in this game, while the Devils were only credited with 1. And realistically, you got to do better than that. You just need to do better than that to overall get the job done. And again, am I at all worried that the Islanders are 0-2 after 2 preseason games? Absolutely not. It doesn't affect me in any particular way whatsoever, but I want to see them play better. I want to see individual players go out and play better. And I think, they have until now, they have like 3-4 days before their next game against the Flyers. Let's see what combinations they have. I'm sure a few players will get sent back to their junior team or to the AHL roster before the next preseason game. But I want to see what they come out with and how that goes between now and then. And please, let's work on the special teams a little bit more because it's got to be better than what we saw in those first 2 games. A little bit of news now. The Islanders announcing on Monday that veteran forward Richard Panik will be reassigned, although they will not yet say where. He was not on the training camp roster. And a lot of speculation going on that, what are they going to do with Panik? Well, Panik now going to be reassigned. He will not be with the Islanders organization. And I think this is sort of a win-win. He wasn't going to be on the big club, mostly for salary cap reasons. You reassign him now, whether he goes back and signs in Europe or whether he finds another NHL organization to play for, whether at the NHL or AHL level. At least now you give him a chance to catch on somewhere else when he's not going to be part of the Islanders organization, even at Bridgeport right now. The way they have acquired additional depth and added to the situation it really doesn't make sense to keep him around. He didn't come up last year. He wasn't going to come up because of the cap hit. And all of a sudden, Richard Panik, basically not going to be part of the Islanders organization this year. He has 521 career NHL games, played briefly with the Islanders, during the COVID scare, even got an assist on the first Islanders goal at UBS Arena on November 20th, which was scored by Brock Nelson. But that's it. So no more Richard Panik as part of the Islanders organization. Wanted to get to an email, Ryan from Bethpage, asking, who do you think would win if the Islanders and Rangers were to meet in the first or second round of the playoffs this year, and what would it mean to the franchise? Ryan, first of all, thank you for the question. I'm sorry I had to delay answering it until now, but I'm back doing live shows, so I can do that now. I would have to say that it would be a dogfight. Would the Rangers be favored in that series? Most likely. Again, the season hasn't started. We don't know where it's coming out, but based on where the two teams finished last year, based on the fact that the Islanders only had one major addition, and that was Alexander Romanov, I think the Rangers would be favored. But again, the style of hockey that the Islanders play, that playoff style of hockey, I think would give the Rangers some fits. And I think it would be entirely possible that the Islanders could take the series to 7 games or even win it in 6. But again, what would it mean to the franchise? Well, let's put it this way. The Rangers and the Islanders met in the playoffs in 1975, 1979, 1981, 82, 83, 84. Met again in 1990 and in 1994. They haven't met since. That is 28 years. As someone who remembers all of those series very, very well and very, very fondly, because it was some of the best hockey I've ever seen in my life, and it is one of the inspirational reasons why I wrote my book, Ice Wars, it would mean a lot to this franchise. It would create buzz in the New York metropolitan area for hockey that really hasn't been there in quite the same way since 1994, which is also the last time either the Rangers or the Islanders were in the Cup final. Well, wait, no, the Rangers made it once more, but against the Kings. But realistically, the amount of buzz, the intensity of the rivalry, those two teams meeting in the playoffs would mean a lot for hockey in the New York area. It would be good for both franchises, and I think it would mean a lot. So Ryan from Bethpage, thank you so much for the question. Greatly appreciated, and hope that answers it for you. We have got more to get to on today's show. We've got our Islanders birthday of the day, a fourth line winger who I think really struggled by riding the shuttle to and from Bridgeport more than any player in the late 2000s, early 2000 teens. We'll talk about that and a lot more still to come on this episode of the Locked On Islanders podcast. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And tomorrow, Thursday, will be the 45th birthday of former Islanders winger Jonathan Sim. John Sim, originally drafted by the Dallas Stars in the 3rd round back in 1996, had a couple of 50-goal seasons for the Sarnia Sting as a junior player, and went over 100 points in 1995-96, made his NHL debut in 98-99 with the Dallas Stars, then went on to play for Nashville, LA, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Florida, Atlanta, and joined the Islanders in 2007-2008, stayed with the Islanders through the 2010-2011 season, and then finished his career in Europe and the AHL. Sim played in 469 career NHL games, 75 goals, 139 points, 314, penalty minutes. Played in 15 playoff games in his NHL career. But none of those were with the New York Islanders. He had 1 goal and 6 penalty minutes in those games. And his best year with the Islanders, 2009, 2010, 13 goals, 22 points in 77 games. Sim, more of a checker and a two-way forward than a big goal scorer. He never did have a 20-goal season in the NHL, but he was gritty and gave you that sandpaper to the game that coaches love and teammates appreciate. And, for 1 year, he was taking the ferry back and forth from Bridgeport. He would literally get called up to the Islanders, play a game or two, go back to Bridgeport, usually for the weekend, to play a game or two there, come back up for the Tuesday game as an Islander and go. I mean, he was on that shuttle unbelievably over and over again, and I felt for him that year. Always a nice guy as far as interviews go, and John Sim, just, a solid all-around two-way hockey player. We go back and look at one of his better games as an Islander. We take you to January 6, 2010 at the Pepsi Center in Denver. Islanders visiting the Avalanche. Craig Anderson, the goalie for the Avs. Dwayne Rolison in between the pipes for your New York Islanders. And early in the game, Andy Sutton, the Islanders defenseman, heads off for interference, and the Avs take advantage. Chris Stewart, his 13th from John Michael Leals and Milan Hajduk. It's 1-0 in favor of the Avs, just 2 minutes, 48 seconds into the game. But the Islanders answer late in the period. Our Islanders' birthday of the day, John Sim gets his 7th of the year. Rob Schremp and Josh Bailey with the assists at 18-10. We are tied at 1 after the first period of action. In the second period, the Islanders' power play goes to work. John Michael Leals off for holding, and Rob Schremp pots his third. Franz Nielsen and Mark Streit the assists. 2-1 Islanders after 40 minutes. In the third, the Avs tie it midway through the period. Matt Hendricks, his 5th from Brandon Yip and Chris Durno, and that made it a 2-2 game. But with a little more than 3 minutes left, Kyle Oposo, his 7th from Andrew McDonald and Mark Streit. Time of the goal, 16:43. Islanders win it by a score of 3-2. And Dwayne Rolison with 30 saves. Islanders outshoot the Avs 35-32. For John Sim, our Islanders' birthday of the day, he has a goal at even strength, 3 shots on goal, and he was on the ice for 10 minutes and 44 seconds. So again, we're a day early here, but happy 45th birthday to former Islanders winger John Sim. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. So love to hear what you think after 2 preseason games. Again, I'm not panicking. If I asked you what the Islanders' record was in the preseason last year, how many of you off the top of your head could answer that? If you think about it, what you do in 6 preseason games has minimal effect on what you do in 82 regular season games. What you're looking for is to see hints that some of these young players can handle playing in an NHL game. You try to establish chemistry between certain players to see what line combinations might be effective. You work on your power play, you work on your penalty kill, you get your goalie's timing back. All of these things are necessary. But at the end of the day, what you're really hoping for is just to get your guys ready for the season. And I'll tell you, if the Islanders go 0-6, I won't be happy about that, but I won't lose any sleep over it. If they start the regular season 0-6, that's a completely different ball game. Thanks again for making Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On NHL. Locked On experts give you a daily 30-minute podcast on all things NHL all year long. You could stay up to date on everything in the hockey world. Locked On NHL, your daily 30-minute NHL podcast. Love to hear some of your thoughts about the first 2 preseason games. And as always, great to hear from you. And we will discuss some of those questions if you send them to us. via email or via comments on YouTube, because it's always great to hear from you and talk about what is on your mind. Have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.